Okay. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to another Port Jackson Securities webinar. I'm your webinar host today, Caitlin Chung, and today we welcome special guest Richard Taylor, the Executive Director and CEO of SensOre. Thank you so much for joining us today, Richard.
Thanks, Caitlin.
So Richard will first go through a presentation with us, and then we will take questions from the floor. Feel free to submit questions whilst he's presenting. Okay, thank you, Richard. Would you like to start us off?
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin, and thanks to Port Jackson Securities for the opportunity to present. I'm Richard Taylor. I'm the CEO of SensOre, a company that's a mining technology and exploration company aimed at transforming the discovery rates for exploration for those critical minerals and battery minerals that the world needs. Just to give you the usual disclaimer, we listed just recently on the ASX about 6 weeks ago. Market cap around 55 million today, tightly held with executives, founders, and companies that we work closely with, such as DGO Gold, BHP Ventures, and other clients that have taken an interest in the stock, as well as a position on our client base. I mentioned very briefly in the introductory session about the problem that SensOre was created to solve, and that is declining exploration results, multi-decade changes in the asset quality of new discoveries, as well as the total quantum of discoveries in traditional mining markets like Australia, North America, Europe, etc., that have had a long history of being able to provide the ingredients for development, industrialization, and technology. We're also seeing obviously some big geopolitical factors playing into this, with some of the suppliers of these commodities that operate much of the supply chain becoming disrupted, particularly with Russia, China, etc., providing many of these key ingredients to the technology industries and the battery mineral sector that countries that are going through the energy transition need a lot more of. You're looking at 1,000% increases in nickel demand for industries such as the transportation and aerospace industries. Electric vehicles obviously having multiple times more demand for copper. Lithium's obviously had a really good run of late, particularly for its critical role in the expansion of the battery market, but also other tech metals like cobalt, gold, and manganese as well, things that our technology has been focused on. We like gold as well, and we see gold as a technology metal. It is one of the best conductors. It's used in a lot of high-end tech demands, obviously also in jewelry, etc. But we see gold and base metals as playing significant roles in the changes that we're seeing in the global economy. But we're going to have to find more of that stuff, and the most likely place to find it is where we know where there are countries that are well endowed with mineralisation, like Australia, but in that near unknown area. So when we move, I guess most of the easy discoveries where we've got outcrop on surface, where we've been able to walk out and make a discovery, those are well picked over, but 2/3 of Australia is undercover. And we've had very little exploration, which I'll go into a bit later. That's where we need to be focused to be able to meet this deficit of base and precious metals that we see growing over the next decade. SensOre's business model is to work with others. The data challenge requires cooperation. That's why we work with clients as well as explore for metals ourselves on our own book. So we have two sources on the revenue side. We have the technology that we cooperate with third parties on to develop and use AI to be able to generate new targets for the future. And we also have services that we provide in data cleansing and being able to improve data sets for companies. This is sort of a byproduct that's evolved out of our work of being a big sponge for information and data, is that we've worked out we can clean and ingest and create missing data for many companies, and be able to allow them to be able to visualize their tenements and their resources in a way that's never been possible before. We also, though, see, and many of our clients see, the potential of some diamonds that we find in the data, areas on open ground, areas that are open for joint venture, that we acquire and explore ourselves. Really, the benefit is sort of that multi-phase potential for discovery that will uplift company value and return it to shareholders. So if I can dive into what the technology is and what the AI is looking for, many of the advances come from adjacent industries. I think mining is known to be not at the bleeding edge of developments in AI, but a follower, sometimes 1 to 2 years, sometimes a lot longer behind developments in those areas. And a lot of the people that we work with come out of either oil and gas or the fintech or medtech environment, where there have been leaps and bounds of improvements in pattern recognition activities, where we're replacing the human component, which can only really hold in its mind the association between 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 variables if you're very good, to being able to look at the association with massive data sets and the correlation between thousands of variables. So in fintech, the AI is used to be able to detect those transactions that could be corruption, fraud, or terrorist financing from massive data sets through the patterns it recognizes. In medtech, you're seeing radiologists and doctors replaced by AI and machines, which can analyze images for, say, cancer or data that could lead to a cancer diagnosis much faster and more efficient than humans can do so in that area. But it's really about pairing up the best parts of the human ability to recognize associations with that of the machine, which can do that on an exponential scale once it knows what it's looking for. With our technology, we train the AI to see the deposits, the historical mines that have been developed in an area, and learn all of the different attributes that are associated with it from the geology. So what did geologists say, what map it as, what did they say its origins were, what kind of fault structures were it on, what were the relationships in the neighbouring area. Then we marry it up with geophysical information, which we have across vast areas, luckily in Australia. And then we were able to trawl massive data sets and extract geochemical information and associate with those, with the deposits, to be able to train the system on what it should be looking for on thousands of historical occurrences. And then we do blind testing. Can the algorithm find a mine when that data was not part of that data set that created the training data point? And the system works very well in blind tests over areas to be able to predict where mine and known endowment is, but it also throws up many new opportunities for mining companies like ourselves and others to discover. Just the second part of the technology, so we've talked about what training the artificial intelligence to be able to recognize what a mine, an economic deposit would look like. The next is to be able to create a search space, a digital search space for it. And this is our data cube, which is a digital twin of the Australian continent, which is populated by 2,500 variables, 2,500 ways of being able to look at the continent and the relationships between those ways of looking and understanding it. And that gives you that fingerprint, and you're searching for those patterns within that massive data component, first of all in Western Australia, but also now in South Australia and growing rapidly across the area. Part of the joy of working at SensOre, a mining tech and exploration company, is that we have new and evolving ways to work with clients to unlock the value from their data. We've talked about the Discoveries database and our technology DPT, which is the pattern recognition. We call it discriminate predictive targeting, being able to find economic deposits. But once you have that massive data cube right across Australia, we have a number of other applications that we're monetizing with people to value add to their data. One of the ones, AGLAD's there, it takes all of the geochemical information from neighbouring drill holes that were near misses. So often we're just focused on the drill holes that made successes, right? But we're taking that near miss information to be able to inform decision making. So if you're a company that has some interesting geochem and they think they're in the proximate area of a potential discovery, we're using all the information from drilling in Western Australia, say, to be able to inform and say you're 50, 80, 100 meters potentially from where an ore body exists based on the geochemical signature in that area. The difference between us and what's happened before is that we can do it on scale, massive amounts of information, and be able to use that predictive capability. We've used it in WA initially to be able to bring out new prospectivity maps, opening up ways of looking at undercover for gold, nickel, lithium, and copper particularly. These are new terrains that have very little exploration on, and companies are lapping up to be able to see into their own tenements, but also their neighbours' tenements and areas where they might look to grow and discover. I talked a little bit about nickel. We've got a very good partnership with BHP. We've been nickel targeting with them for the last 2 years in the Yilgarn. We've taken that, I guess, the understanding of nickel that we've developed and applied it outside of the Yilgarn, and we've identified 4 very high confidence nickel targets. One of them a JV with Chalice Mines. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the fantastic Julimar discovery for nickel in Western Australia. Truly one of the discoveries of our lifetime. But we have similar prospects that we've been able to pick up at Munera, a former Rio Tinto project, CRA project mapped as a carbonatite, which has a potential rare earth overlay, and 2 new targets, Scorpion and Jenkins, that come out of that targeting exercise that have all of the digital ingredients, all of the signs from our deposit fingerprinting that point to the potential for major discoveries. And that's how we use some of that technology to be able to improve our own pipeline of projects. For a junior company, we have a lot of targets. We're target rich. We like to work with third parties to be able to unlock that value. And we have a recently announced partnership with a company called Deutsche Rohstoff, which has launched a company called Prime Lithium. They are I guess, upstream lithium producer in Europe, looking to secure supply of lithium for the future. Our partnership is looking at using the information we've generated on spodumene pegmatite-rich potential systems in Western Australia to be able to explore for new lithium prospects in those areas. So putting serious money behind us, we're contributing our own share to the development of those targets and being able to run the operations through our base in Perth and explore those targets and develop that pipeline of lithium new discoveries, we hope, and be able to share in the benefit through equity with Deutsche Rohstoff, which have been a good partner of ours for many years. The second one that we recently announced was Barton Gold. Barton and the group there are very focused on the Eastern Gawler area. Alex is a big believer, Alex Scanlon, the CEO, a big believer in the fact that data will unlock new discoveries in this terrain. You can see how fertile it has been for gold occurrences in that area, but much of it is undercover. I know Barton has been pioneering its own machine learning activity, but we saw an opportunity to collaborate with them on unlock value from their data using our algorithms for automatic cleaning and prediction of geology and geochemistry undercover, and be able to generate royalties for SensOre on the event of discovery. So we're pretty excited about that. We think the terrain around Barton's operations is exactly what our system is good at, finding things, pushing from known mineral occurrences into the nearby environment, which have been obscured by cover. And we're pretty excited about getting on the ground and seeing some of the fruits of our labour in action with drilling. Third announcement we also put out recently is our collaboration with CGI, Unico CGI. They're a major software developer globally, taking our technology, which has been developed in-house by our experts, and putting that onto a cloud-based platform where we can go from working with dozens of clients as present to hundreds potentially in the future. That's our objective and vision. Part of that will be taking the data cube, the way of looking at the Australian continent, putting it onto a platform, allowing people to be able to access that information, being able to interact with their own data, and be able to benefit from the new and exciting world of AI being applied to these big data sets. I think their expertise is obviously in developing the solution, go-to-market strategy and commercial readiness for companies, and then being able to provide that user interface for geologists and exploration managers that will help them make those new discoveries and take away the pain of having to collect paper records and files and 3 to 6 months of working up an exploration target from the data from grassroots to being able to do that within seconds. One of the benefits that I like to talk about is the potential contribution we have to the environment and to the sustainability agenda within companies. So our drilling and our approaches and the companies that work for us are interested in more surgical application of drilling, less pattern drilling of areas, more reliance on the data to get us into the right locations and being able to test it with less land disturbance. We also will have an impact on reducing the carbon footprint of the mineral exploration sector, which is important for us to meet our 2030 and 2050 goals, but also in the areas that we work in Western Australia and in other parts of the world, being able to minimise the disturbance and the presence of the sector when we're working in sensitive areas and remote rural communities. So we think there's a lot of dimensions to our technology that we're looking forward to talking about, and as we work with more and more clients around the area. I've talked quite a bit about the technology and the targets that we've generated so far and the work with third parties in relation to royalties, equity, our own targets that we've pulled together ourselves. Our first generation of artificial intelligence targets came in Western Australia for gold. We pulled those together 2019, 2020, before the most recent boom in exploration in those areas. We got in first. Our technology zeroes in on some of the most well-known mining camps in Western Australia. It does throw up some wildcards, which I'll talk about later. But importantly for us, it shows that geology and exploration has been doing a really good job of finding where economic deposits are. Where we've been able to pick up ground, it's been sort of in two areas: being able to recognise overlooked and unloved asset packages, and in that near unknown environment. So where you've got major mines on a structure, where that structure goes undercover, and we can predict where we will be within that system, being able to extend the known area of exploration influence of those areas. So we've got drilling underway in a number of places at the moment. Obviously up towards Meekatharra, where we're just south of the Mulga Bill discovery by Great Boulder Resources. They've been getting some fantastic grade hits from Mulga Bill recently and lighting up the market, and we cooperate very closely with them on the geophysics in that area to be able to see that trend runs through our system. And around the Murchison in Mount Magnet, we have our Mount Magnet project there is an intrusion-related gold system. We drilled that recently with diamond. We intersected the intrusion system at depth, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it's very close to Ramelius's operations around Mount Magnet there. In Leonora, we're active both north and south of the major Gwalia mining operations, and the system AI really loves that area. It sees a lot more potential for more to be discovered. We've got some great neighbours, obviously partnering in with Kin Mining, but St Barbara to the north, Genesis to the south of some of our projects. So it's putting us into some pretty hot terrain. And also when you look at Kalgoorlie, we have Balagundi, which is just 16 k's from Kalgoorlie's centre of operations in the super pit, where we are drilling a historic gold mining district there. We were able to see that not much modern exploration had taken place in that area, and be able to zero in on those tenements and those structures that the system loved. So we've got a really wide-ranging number of projects, and the Majura projects out there I've spoken with for base metals, and I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. Balagundi, which is near Kalgoorlie, which I just spoke about, we just finished our first pass program there, and we pulled out some pretty interesting things from our first RC program there. We've got a metre at 5.5 grams there, 34 metres at 0.5 gram, really over a very large geochem anomaly over that zone. The first program was to get us into the right orientation of where we saw structures, be able to complete the geophysics program in relation to it. And our next, I guess, our next program will be following up on the leads and information that we've discovered in that area. Being our first program, it was important to orient ourselves, but you can see that we're getting great numbers from those initial results there. The Mount Magnet system, I guess our first few drill programs, we identified the surface expression of the gold system and zeroed in on that intrusion feature that you see mapped on the left of the program. We had our first hits there, 14 metres at 1.5 grams, and looking for improved size and grade at depth, similar to our analogy at Eridanus, which Ramines is mining just to the south. It's another intrusion-related system. We've verified, I guess, the nature of the ore body from the geochem work we've done. And the somewhat unusual lines you see on that map are the pathfinder elements that we're mapping. And we see the pathfinder elements have a much bigger expression around the potential gold ore body. Not many companies assay for all of the elements that we do, the full suite of geochem, to be able to get the most information out of our drilling and be able to vector as close as possible we can to ore body once we get within that system. So we're still assays pending. Turnaround times in labs in Western Australia, for those who know, have been slower than normal, but we see the potential there for a number of future programs as we work up that tenement package. I talked about Great Boulder Resources and the Mulga Bill discovery. I think Mulga Bill was named from a poem, maybe Facey, I think, from Mulga Bill to Eaglehawk. So our new target there is Eaglehawk. It's the extension, we believe, of the trend that's running north-south from Great Boulder's Mulga Bill. We're looking at a program at the moment there for Air Core as we speak, to be able to test that extension to the south. We have, I guess, the system there. We completed an initial program about 12 months ago over that T-well, to a T-well DPT target. And for those who are intrigued about the dotted lines, the dotted lines are the outputs from the system, just the locations where the AI says, you really need to focus on this. There's something interesting here. This is an area that has all of those special ingredients for the potential for a major mine of the future. So we've got several projects in that area. Sandstone Roan to the south as well, which is just to the north of Castle Minerals Poleel prospect. So we know there's lots going on, and we're unpacking the geology in that location. But I'm excited for seeing what we do with the next program as we get off and underway there. The other project I'd like to talk about a little bit is Maynards Dam, which is a JV with Jindalee Resources and Torque Metals. It's just near the St Ives project. The AI picked out 2 targets here. You can see 2 ellipses, one an open pit and one an underground target. And then in the process of pulling out paper records which didn't form part of the AI prediction, we pulled out all of these historic drill results that have not been followed up in recent areas, including 4 metres at 21 grams, 16 metres at 0.23 and 10 metres at 1.5 there. And we've also seen our partners at Torque Metals with some great drilling results on that southern boundary in recent days with their Paris operations there, but also the extension drilling along that north-south feature. So again, the system getting us into really what we see as emerging corridors of mineralisation, and looking forward to our 2022 drilling campaigns that are underway at the moment. I talked a little bit about wildcards. I think 90% of the targets that we generate, they're in really well-known areas and of exploration, and where there's good data associated with it. 10% though really get us to scratch our heads and say, why is the system going there? There's no geochem, there's no historical gold occurrences, there's no real data to drive it to that location. And Boudinot was one of these targets that we picked up. It was on open ground, a rarity in Western Australia these days, in good potential gold areas. And we did a soil sampling survey over the top of it, just really to it piqued our interest, and we came up with a large coherent gold anomaly over the target zone. We've just completed a program there for air core drilling in the last few days, and we're waiting, I guess, to see what the AI does in areas where there's low data density associated with it. So I think we're I guess excited by what we can see, the potential for the technology, not only to generate new knowledge in known mining areas, but also to throw up areas that for whatever reason humans have been biased and they haven't paid enough attention to in the program. So I've just finishing up, I think we do have a business model which is unique. We do pair up working with third parties, and the reason is that the more data that we get, the more collaborations that we have, the technology learns. What the technology is today is not where it will get to tomorrow or even in 2 to 5 years. We know that this approach is going to work because it has worked in other adjacent industries to be able to improve the exploration, I guess, recognising anomalies in data. We do see the benefit of being able to pick up exploration ground when we see it with our own geological and geoscience expertise, and provide shareholders the opportunity not just to benefit from the technology revenue streams that we have, but that multiple uplift on value from being able to have equity and royalties associated with discovery. And we're multiplying the number of targets in lithium and nickel and copper that we're exposed to. We have a really experienced board, both on the technology and on the exploration side. Robert Peck, long-term technology investor, architect, but been providing leadership and guidance on how we go about our business strategy for technology development. Tony O'Sullivan's with the metals company, nickel nodule mining on the seafloor using robotics, fascinating company, NASDAQ listed, did a SPAC deal last year, pretty exciting for the supply of battery minerals of the future. Nick Lim, multiple ASX listed companies, Adrian Manga as well, with chairman of Pampa Metals. On the exploration side, Robbie Rowe, ex-VP of Barrick for exploration outside of the Americas. He was chair or worked very closely with the Uncover initiative, government-led, to be able to focus on discovering targets undercover and opening up new terrain in Australia. Greg Bell and Michaela come from mineral deposits, lots of corporate expertise in being able to take junior companies and as they grow and improve their governance and performance. On our advisory board, we have Tom Whiting, Chris Gregory, and Michael Oppenheimer, who are, I guess, they've been decades in BHP, Rio Tinto, and made a number of mining discoveries, major mining discoveries, including Cannington with Tom, etc. And finally, Alf Ego, he is our Chief Technology Officer. He has been working on literally this same problem for decades, and has been generating a lot of the ideas and the technology that goes behind our approach to the data cube DPT. He was formerly with CRA Rio Tinto Research and working as a consultant with many companies in the last decades who are innovators and performers who want to see the best coming out of the data and performance. So finally, SensOre, we're about disrupting conventional exploration. We have a fantastic tech development and exploration team, lots of experience. We're in one of the major transformations in the economies globally. One, the energy transition driving battery minerals needs. Two, the geopolitical desire to see more supply chains within developed OECD markets for your critical technology metals and rare earths. We have a fantastic pipeline of assets on gold and copper. We're working with really good companies, good quality teams to be able to amplify what we're doing. We're taking the smarts we've built internally, we're putting them out there into the cloud for people to be able to use, and we want to grow quickly into other parts of the world, particularly now that we're listed and we've met some of those key objectives. So Caitlin, I might open up. That's the end of the presentation, so I'm happy to hand back over to you.
Thank you for that. That was great. Firstly, congratulations on how much you guys have achieved since listing. It's only been about 1.5 months and you guys have already had so many new partnerships. So congratulations on that. Before we dive into the technological questions, what's been the biggest lesson you've learned so far since listing?
Definitely about scaling. And we've spent most of our time this year is about how do we take what we're doing and reduce the labour requirements associated with that. I mean, we've seen labour shortages right across the country. We've seen universities close their geoscience faculties. The smarts that underpin the Australian economy are scarce, and when you find those gems of people with the geochemistry, with the geophysics, the geology background, you need to make sure that they can service what is a real deficit within the industry. People are crying out to be able to get good data science and good geoscience expertise. So how we work with the technology sector to be able to amplify the smarts that we have in-house has really been key for me for the first half of this year, and getting out and talking and explaining to people why do we do technology, why do we do exploration together, and how do they work synergistically.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are still learning about AI and the potential that it has. And you were talking about how you guys have really taken advantage of AI to transform the exploration in Australia. With how fast AI is advancing, what do you see is the potential for SensOre in 5 years' time?
Yeah, the changes are exponential at the moment. I mean, we use a lot of different aspects of AI, and we're adding them to different parts of our workflow all of the time. I mean, I see the changes in natural language recognition and the understanding of language. That has been a real evolution in the last couple of years. I can't imagine where it will get to in 5 years. So we're training the computer to be a geologist, to be able to read maps, to be able to read reports, extract that information, turn it into a quantitative layer. That's a whole branch of AI. I mean, we talk a lot about our DPT, which is pattern recognition, which is, you know, we're all familiar with the computer being able to pick faces or those type of things within the data. But there are other advances around when we're training the computer how to be a geochemist, how to recognize an error, how to automatically change an error and be able to QA/QC that properly. So all of these roles and these jobs that we're seeing are going to be transformed. I don't think we're not going to replace people. We're going to see more discoveries with companies that have geologists who are data science ready and skilled at AI recognition. And I can see this really driving new growth in Australia and North America and other places that are leaders in data availability and potentially give emerging markets in Africa and other places a run for their money in the new discovery market.
And we've actually had quite a few questions come in about that in terms of whether you guys have plans to ever expand globally, start exploring in other continents.
Definitely. I think the rollout where we're looking at is North America and Europe, and it's been on our work plan for the last couple of years. It has been influenced by COVID, staying closer to home, generating the technology there. I was in the States in the last few weeks looking at how we grow our offering in North America. I think the developed countries are where we're focused, particularly because that's where we're seeing the demand. The areas that have had long histories of mining operations generally have good data. and it's where the applications can flow. We do have aspects of the technology that work in non-data rich areas. So our geology and geophysics workflow, perfect for places in West Africa, other locations where you don't necessarily have the geochem information that we have the luxury of it in Australia with big public data sets. But I think this technology is going to transform the world. We have some pretty strong competition out of North America as well. Cobalt Metals just raised 192 million from Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos backed ventures. They're aimed at solving the same problem we are. Goldspot and TSXV listed company. This is a massive growth area, and we want to be right there front and center for it.
Yeah. And are there any minerals that the technology can't detect?
It's a good question. When you've got a low training data set, the confidence in the predictions drop away. I had a question the other day about palladium. I mean, we can look at palladium through our geochem, etc. It's not something that we've thought about targeting because most of the people are focused on the common base metals associated, and there are relatively fewer palladium mines that are specific to palladium around the world. We don't do the bulk minerals, not because the system is not good at locating them, but more that the problems with bulks that the people are looking for solutions for are minimization of contaminants, transportation and logistics, etc. The location is not really one of the drivers that we see as being most important for those. There's a lot of iron ore in different places, but where is it of a good enough quality? Where does it have the access to rail? Those type of things. So we see the strategic sweet spot being base and precious metals, and particularly those metals that are being driven by the energy transition requirements.
Right, okay. I'll take two more questions. How far deep the mines can the AI detect?
Yeah. So if you look at the training data sets we have, I mean, down in WA, we have, in different parts of the world, we have, it goes down 2 kilometres, the deepest drill holes, or even deeper. But the number of drill holes you have in those locations are, I guess, relatively few. So you're dealing with a lot less data density at that area. And obviously looking for deep deposits is, I guess, more capital intensive and challenging than looking for the low-hanging fruit potential near surface deposits in those areas. So our focus has been down within the first kilometre and largely driven by the geophysics capabilities down to that level. So depending on the data density in different areas and how we go, our predictions run down as far as a kilometre. After that, we tend to disregard them from an economic perspective. Probably more happy doing that in data-rich near mine environments than we are in unexplored terrains where we don't have a lot of information about them.
Okay. Well, to finish off with a fun question, what's your dream mining company as a client?
I think we have the dream mining companies, fast-moving innovators who want to jump on board. I think BHP, DGO, Deutsche Rostock, all those groups have come to us and said, hey, we recognise that AI and it's going to transform that. Digital transformation is happening. We want to get on board. There are a number of other companies out there on our wish list that we can see have some of the greatest potential in the Eastern Goldfields. They should be pretty excited about the data that we have, but for various reasons, they are cashed up and wanting to do it themselves. The beauty of our product is that we can see into everyone's tenement and rank what they're doing and see how their exploration conventionally is progressing over those areas and where they've potentially overlooked elephant-sized targets. Some people find that threatening. Some people see it as, I need to deliver targets and I need to drill them. So the best client for me is the one who's an innovator, one who wants to get on board fast and knows that this is the future, not someone who wants to stay and doing what they've always done in relation to conventional exploration.
No, we can't ignore the potential that AI has and the future of AI at all. But thank you so much for talking to me, Richard. It was really, really great to see more of what you guys do, and I learnt so much. Thank you to everyone who joined. This session has been recorded, so it will be uploaded to our website shortly. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks again.
Thank you.